digital interactions can see a slew of disruption occur. Some can be criminal, and then others can be less malicious. You could get lost laptops, you could have a vendor that gets disrupted or taken offline, which ultimately means that the insured is taken offline, as well as to a host of things that maybe aren't necessarily triggered by crime, right? So as digital interactions increase, there is just broader exposure to the fact that you as an organization are using technology to conduct and interact with the marketplace. So why is the standardization of cyber insurance products potentially problematic? No two organizations are the same, therefore the way in which they use technology will differ, therefore the investment they make into technology will be different. Once you start making a different investment into technology, the loss that ultimately occurs when disruption occurs will be different across the two organizations, even if in the same industry. Unless we're having the conversation with the insured to understand where they're putting their investment, why they're making that investment, and understanding the variables that are being built into the network because of that, we're never going to truly understand what the loss is going to look like. Therefore, it's very hard to tell the insured as an underwriter whether or not they are overvalued or undervalued there. And for us as an underwriter to make sure that we're getting the right price to price the risk accordingly. So the value add that we're bringing is talking to the insured in a much more bespoke manner, right? EmergIn is trying to get into the weeds of how you're making your investments into the tech, ultimately, therefore, which elements of your workflow could be disrupted because of this investment. And then when that disruption does occur, ultimately what that loss will look like and how much you're potentially paying under the different heads of coverage. We believe that this gives the client the confidence that irrespective of what the event might be, that we have discussed it, that we know it's an issue, we've underwritten to it, and that ultimately it's going to be covered all the way through the tower. When we look at an industry, call it manufacturing in this instance, we will identify the different types of technology they'll have across their entire network, how that workflow could potentially be disrupted because of the technology they have over the flow, and then ultimately what the cost is to the organization because different elements of that workflow are disrupted. So the first element, looking at their network and their workflow, we'd identify that they have an overarching operational technology, which will take inflow of orders and then will ultimately determine where the end product is delivered. We will identify that there is a manufacturing component to this, right? And we will talk to how that industrial control system is set up, whether it has any external facing components to it or not. Is it just internal, which is what we would expect, and air gapped? As well as then ultimately, for example, logistics and how the goods are getting from the manufacturing facilities all the way out to the end user. Then from there, we would say, different scenario occurs. You may have a ransom event at the operational level, which means that you aren't taking any service orders, therefore you don't know how many goods you need to get out, or potentially you don't know which widgets are supposed to be delivered where. The next element is looking at your manufacturing arm and saying the disruption here could look like X, let's call it a system failure, and you aren't able to manufacture anymore. We'd ask you questions around inventory management and say, okay, are you a lean manufacturer or do you have inventory? And are you able to continue to service your goods out? And then on the third component, logistics, if you can't deliver your goods, we would be asking you, well, do you control that or do you not control that? Because there are two different outcomes for that. One is you do control your logistics management and then you're going to incur costs to try and work out how to get goods delivered on time and to the right place, versus ultimately the disruption from not having any control of that and what that means for you as an organization as well, which is you might be beholden to a service contract that you have in place with that vendor, which means the disruption could take longer to ultimately resolve than it might if you did. So what is the financial impact of those different elements of your network are disrupted? Those are the types of conversations that we try to drive and that we're very keen to engage in with our clients, because that gives us what we need to be able to make a determination as to how we ultimately will price and rate your insurance product. But I think the insurance industry needs to continue to evolve as quickly as our insureds are investing in technology. Understanding how our insureds are making their investment will only mean that we get the right products to them when they need it. If we do execute upon the first 2 points, we'll be able to stabilize the marketplace and attract new capital in to only create more relevance for the cyber insurance product. And EmergIn is at the forefront of this transformation.